I believe that Terrarians often speedrun the games of Moonlord and never take their time on their worlds. I want to change that. So over the course of a year, I will be playing on this one world, with each stage progression being blocked until the start of a new month. I'm doing this so I can seriously take my time in each stage of Terraria's progression and see what it has to offer. So for the month of November, I've only been allowed to defeat the Empress of Light. Otherwise, I could make no other form of progression. This is what happened. This is a month I've been shredding for quite a while now. Empress of Light isn't exactly a lot of progression. Sure, Duke and the Martians aren't much in the way of progression either, and perhaps neither are the moons, but the moons require a good amount of grinding, and Duke was earlier in hard mode, so I was sure I'd be able to have things to do. But now I've gotten everything I want from the Old One's army and have done most of the projects I could think of for hard mode, so the only thing I can think of to do this month is fight Empress. So I guess we'll just get straight to it then. I've never actually beaten Empress on tier before, partially because I never fight her and partially because I never did quite figure out her pattern or how to dodge her consistently. I also wasn't sure if I could spawn her outside the hollow. I'm pretty sure I can, but not certain. I grabbed one of my few lace wings and spawned it in. Oh, the critter, Well, that sucks, but I put the guide to critter companionship away and got right to the first fight against Empress, and you know what? I didn't find the fight to be that bad at all. It was almost as if she wasn't that tough of a boss, but I knew that couldn't be true since, again, I'd never beaten her on tier before, least of all in master mode. Something has to be up. I didn't actually end up winning that first fight though, since I found myself in a bad position and was hit 3 times and out. But overall, I came really close to taking her down first try, potionless. That was exactly the kind of confidence boost I needed. Grabbing some potions this time, I went into the second fight without a care in the world, and for the first time ever, I took down Empress of Light on tier. Hey! Hey! Let's go! And I never got the trophy before! Oh, that's so cool! The Starlight is also a really neat weapon. Not sure if it's actually good, but it's cool. After that easy victory, I saw I still have one more lace wing and figured I might as well summon her and make use of my potions. I also started to focus a bit harder on dodging and reading her attacks for the sake of practicing for the eventual daytime Empress fight. I lost the fight, which was too bad, but I learned a thing or two about her attacks. I also have come to the conclusion that Empress is still a boss I'll greatly struggle with in the future. Something this run has done is teach me how to deal with many of these bosses more effectively, but at the same time, it's also warped my view of them, but not necessarily in a bad way. I am doing this run because I think people often speedrun the game, and as a content creator, I am often guilty of this since I need to complete runs in a timely manner so I can post videos about it. I rarely prepare with the best potions, accessories, or weapons that I can have in these runs. Heck, I never even fight the Old One's army in most runs, and Betsy's wings were a key reason I could take down Empress in the first place. So although I'm delighted I can beat her, I also recognize that the build I have is leagues stronger than my typical build in any average run, which I guess speaks volumes about how taking the game slow can make the game easier, and I think is more along the lines of how it's meant to be played. I've also always viewed Empress and the Old One's army as totally optional, and sure they are, but part of the reason I think they're optional is because I don't think their drops are all that necessary. But now that I'm here, I'm starting to really recognize how these bosses or events do add to Terraria's progression, since the weapons and accessories from them are better than the usual Duke, Moon, or Eclipse gear that I've grown accustomed to. Anyways, that was a long aside. Now that I got more lace wings, it's time to take down the Empress again and continue to better learn her attacks. This time she dropped the Eventide bow, which I'm definitely going to have to test against something since it's just a pretty weapon, though I guess all of Empress's weapons are very pretty. I didn't have any more lace wings and day rolled around, so I figured I'd finish up the elevator build I hadn't quite finished last month. It's nice, but still kind of pointless considering where I am in progression, but I like it. Once I was done, I slept until night and returned to hunting for lace wings, which is probably the most annoying part of Empress. I've always found these butterflies to be incredibly rare and was lucky to get just 2 of them in any given night. However, this week, 2 has been the minimum, and if I remember right, there was one night I managed to catch a whopping 5 of these things. Do you often have a hard time finding these? Their seemingly small spawn rate combined with short time window they can spawn in has always been a bit of a thorn in my side. I summoned her again, still needing a few drops as well as the practice, and although I beat her, she is one of those bosses where the projectiles stick around even after taking her down. Don't perish. no! My potions! My potions! What a waste of my potions. I came close to spawning her again until I realized it was almost day and the solar eclipse happened, which I promptly skipped. I skip a lot of solar eclipses. Sometimes I don't even mention it in the video. In fact, probably most of the time I don't. Like, why would I bother with it anymore? Man, I love the sundial. After another Lacewing hunt, I summon and take down Empress again, but this time I get the mage weapon. I'm sad it wasn't the star guitar thing. This is actually the, I guess, normal drop called the Night Glow. I'd seen it used before, but I'm really not familiar with how it functions at all. And what better way is there to learn functionality of a new weapon than in heated combat? So I summoned Empress again and tested the Night Glow, comparing it against the Razor Blade, and I gotta say, this thing is spectacular. It doesn't feel like it does more damage, but the DPS meter clearly indicates otherwise. Its only pitfall is that it doesn't nearly have the range of the Razor Blade Typhoon. But even so, it does have pretty good range. I came close to winning the fight, but it turned to day and I hadn't even noticed, and so I got one shot. That isn't exactly the most promising indicator for how well I'll do against Daytime Empress, but even so, I figured I might as well get to work on that. Since defense and regeneration are useless against a one-shot boss, I went to the jungle temple to farm Golem several times until I got my hands on a sunstone, which I then crafted into a celestial stone. Many years ago, this stone was a go-to accessory for me, but I haven't crafted one for many years, so doing that felt really nostalgic. And so I replaced my Terra Spark boots with a Honey Drizzle Shark Tooth necklace and my Ankh shield with the stone. It doesn't feel like much of a damage increase, but those combined with my damage potions I hoped would do the trick. Heart pounding, I summoned her and didn't do that bad, but I got in a bad spot too high up in the world and ended up dying after bringing her to half health. This wasn't exactly a clear indicator that I'd do much better in future attempts, but it felt doable. So let's summon her again. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned is that there is one attack or attack combo that I've struggled to dodge every time I've fought her thus far. With this attack, she summons her rapid fire light summoning projectiles, and right as they shoot, she zips over to you and does her close range attack. I never once dodged this in any fight and had entirely forgotten to keep an eye out for it when this happened. Okay. What's that attack? Oh! 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 Oh my goodness! Come on. Oh, come on, you couldn't give it to me! You could have just given it to me! Let's go! Second try! Second try! Let's go! I was fully prepared to grind Daytime Empress for the entirety of this month, but here I was, second try, taking her down while using my own strategy. I hate using the wiki and stubbornly avoid the meta, so being able to take her down while using a strategy all my own felt fantastic, and now I feel so much more confident in fighting her. You don't scare me anymore, woman. I mean, Empress of Light. I finished the week farming her some more for that star guitar weapon, but I ended up losing 2 fights and winning 2, and the whole time I felt as though I was doing almost no damage. I had reverted back to my more well-rounded build as opposed to my damage build, and I assume that's what it was because these fights suddenly felt like they were lasting a lot longer. And Empress was even using a homing attack I hadn't seen her use before I beat her during the daytime. I don't think she changes after taking her down like that. I don't know, it felt weird. Maybe I'll have to go back to pure damage next week. But before we get to that, we're almost at the end of the year and I'll be throwing 1 stick of dynamite for every subscriber I have at the year's end. So if you enjoy the content, be sure to subscribe and claim your stick of dynamite today. With the beginning of the second week, it occurred to me that I've already accomplished everything I had set out to do this month. I guess outside of getting the magical guitar from the Empress of Light, but that's a rare job, so we'll just have to keep working towards that every here and there. But I also don't want to just spend this entire month farming her, so I decided I'd build something. I put out a post in the community tab asking for some ideas, and the majority of you said I should do something Tolkien-inspired or in the Tundra. And since I have land where the Tundra and forest meet, I figured I'd do a little bit of both. But on my way to inspect the land, I got a little sidetracked with this water on the ground that I swear wasn't here before. How did it get here? I made a quick stop to the demolitionist to purchase some dry bombs and clean up the extra water where the build is going to take shape. Now, I've mentioned this in several other videos, but I'm not a builder. I've never been particularly good at the craft, but spending time on this world has allowed me to practice it a bit more, and I recently watched one of Chaos's latest videos for building tutorials. I guess by the time this video comes out, he'll probably have posted more videos, and who knows what those will be, but if you like what I build today, then just know that anything I do, I basically learned entirely from his tutorials. So if you want to know how to build, I'd suggest watching him rather than building tips with Thorben. Yeah, that was, that felt, I'm not removing that from the video, but that felt weird. But anyways, today's build is heavily inspired by one of the ones I saw in his video, but with a Thorben twist, I guess. Before building though, I had to decide what materials I'm going to need, and this always feels like the hardest part of building since I don't want to have to return to these chests to retrieve any blocks I may have forgotten, but it's inevitably going to happen. Maybe someday I'll have all the ones I desire, but it is not this day. It also turned to the time of night when lacewings would spawn, so I wrapped up choosing my blocks so I could spend the early night searching for these things, but thought I was going crazy because none were spawning, and I kept on looking at the clock, unsure if I were remembering the time right, but I was, they just weren't spawning. One last thing I needed to do before getting to the build was finally organize my void bag and piggy bank. I typically just throw stuff into these things that I think might be useful, and I'm terrible at designating one to one thing like armor, fishing supplies, etc., and the other for, I don't know, explosives. I wanted to put the many blocks I was bringing into one of these for easy access, and so I moved most of my supplies into the void bag, removed or sold things I no longer needed, and at last it was time to build. Well, almost. The lake next door has this ugly pile of dirt sticking up, so I smoothed that out. And then I guess I also had to eyeball the land here and decide what I was going to do with it. I love the look of naturally spawned trees and keep forgetting that fertilizer exists in Terraria, and I could just grow more trees if I wanted, but that's partially because I didn't know fertilizer existed until like a month or two ago, and that blew my mind. And so I chose which trees got the axe and which ones stuck around when I realized I needed more regular wood for this build, since a lot of it will require wood. Due to a lack of normal trees and my complete apathy for the Crimson, I cleared every tree in the evil biome. There was even this funky red fruit that dropped from one of the trees that I've never seen before, and it just looks really cool. I never chopped down Crimson trees, so this was a fun discovery. I also should have used the axe regrowth, but oh well. I shimmered the Crimson wood into regular wood, and now I can finally actually get started with building. I began making a basic shape for the houses, focusing on making them asymmetrical, as I far too often stick to a strict symmetry, and that doesn't look natural enough for what I'm going for this build. I then added a sort of rounded basement that really helped make the outline feel complete. It also sort of looks like a healing potion, and that was a happy accident. First, the walls. I placed regular stone wall behind the floor layer for its extra texture, and then placed planked walls up the sides of the stairs. I guess this area could be called. I'm a big fan of placing large bamboo wall in the middle of these things, as though everybody has a firefighter pole thing in their house. Just had to get some paint to paint it brown, and that looks good. I might change it to gray another time, but so long as it's not green, I'm happy. Now these boxes are too bare, so I wanted to add a little bit more to them. I placed stone slabs at first, but I don't like how it merges with the wood. It's a bit unnatural looking to me, so I experimented with ancient stone slabs, and the separation they create changed everything. I was much more happy with it. I then added these things that are a basic way to make any build look fancy, in my opinion. I then filled in the rest of the wall with regular wood, but that's just a placeholder as I add some wood fence to create windows. No matter what I try, glass windows never look good in any of my builds, so I often rely on fences because they add a little more texture, which I like without adding any extra effort on my part. I then hang some dynasty lamps, though I'm not sure I like them. I want a lantern that's sort of a black and dungeon looking thing. I get to work on decorating the interior, but interiors are what I struggle with the most when it comes to builds. I can do a half-decent exterior, but once I'm inside, I don't know what to do. I throw down a couch, a bed, and a drawer in the top room to create a sort of bedroom feel in the top room, and add a furnace and chair and table to the surface level room, which looks fine. I wasn't sure what to do with the last one, and these houses look like they could collapse at any second, so I placed some pillars for support. I also thought I'd turn this center part into actual stairs with platforms, but it was ugly no matter how I looked at it. How do people make good-looking stairs with platforms? I know I've seen it before and it looked great. I then turned the last room into a sort of miniature pub or dining room. Now I mentioned I wanted these black dungeon-looking lanterns, and I went to the guide to see if I could make anything like what I wanted, but there was nothing in the crafting recipe, so I visited the dungeon to search for these things. But it would seem that the lantern type is dependent on the dungeon color or something, because I only ever saw these red lanterns that weren't at all what I was hoping for, so I suppose I'm stuck with the Dynasty lanterns for now, but they look fine. Someone then recommended I use mahogany wood for the pillars instead of the beam, and I liked how they looked, but I liked it more with the two side by side, so I kept it that way. I also painted the mahogany orange, so that makes them look like normal wood. In desperation to make the interiors more interesting, I added stone platforms on the top of the fences, which I think looks good. Now let's figure out what to do with the basement. I placed stone walls for the time being because I was stumped, and then placed ancient stone slabs around it, which really looks great. I see why builders love this block so much, but I'm already out of the stuff and my grave markers keep disappearing, so I went on a hunt for grave markers so I could create an ectomist with which to craft more of these blocks. There's also several other walls I'm going to need to make while I'm at it. I fiddled around with the weapons rack for a bit, gave up, and then wondered what it'd be like to do the inverse of the build above. Instead of stone wall base and a wood wall fill, I had a wood wall base with a stone wall fill. Does that verbiage make any sense? I don't know, but this sparked an idea and I installed some beams and put down rows of platforms. I added a hearth and a table and chair that really don't belong here, but I like them, so they're staying, and the weapons rack went on the other side of the right beam. I then put down flower pots. Does anyone still use these since planter boxes were added? They look a lot better in my opinion. So I put them down and then placed glass wall behind where the plants grow because photosynthesis. But this leaves the left side of the basement awkwardly empty, but it's also too small to add a weapons rack. I could have expanded the farm, but instead I used a mahogany leaf wand to place down some leaf blocks, and I loved it so much. I created a sort of fungal overgrowth kind of thing. I don't fully know what it is, I guess, but I love it. Let's take a break to farm the Empress of Light. I have 4 lace wings, and after last week, I feel confident. Using just a mana power and mana regen potion, I kill her on the first attempt, and then on the second attempt, I died while she had just over 1,000 health, and the homing projectiles finish her off from beyond the grave. Does this count as a win? I never know if I can count these as wins or not. The third lacewing was wasted because the razor blade missed it from 2 inches away because gosh darn it, there was an enemy behind me who was way too dangerous to be left alive. Using the last lacewing, I killed her a 3rd time, but still no magic guitar. Time to add the atmosphere to this build. We got a nice house, but now I'm adding some context to it. I place a lump of dirt above it and then slap a bunch of stone into the mix and plant grass seeds. But of course, this can't just float here. So I built some beams into the dirt mass and these little housings that are meant to mimic a sort of mine. I was going for this sense that the whole thing was underground and the support had to be built into the roof of the cave, and since it's a cave, I added a bunch of different walls I crafted from the ectomist biome. And I've never built with this stuff before, and it looks awesome. It was at this point that I realized my time for the week was up, and I was astonished. Time had flown by, and all I had accomplished this week was this one build. This is part of the reason why when I started this series that I decided I would sort of avoid building. If you enjoy building, you could spend endless hours in Terraria, but I have never particularly liked it, and I didn't want to use it as a crutch to burn time. I wanted to check out all the other aspects of the game to their fullest, and I decided I would only ever build something if I really wanted to build it. And this fit that bill and has become one of my favorite builds on this world. I searched for some more lace wings, only found one, and I guess I'll have to save the Tundra part of the build for next week. I come into week 3 and I'm so happy with how this build looks, but it's not even close to complete. This part is done, sure, but I still need to add the aforementioned Tundra build. We'll try to make this a bit quicker since I spent quite a long time describing the part in the forest because I'm not really a building tips guy, but I guess today that's who I am. So time for another episode of Building Tips with Thorpe. I can't. I started by building what I wanted to be a sort of open cave mouth. Initially, it was a bit too thin, but it gave me an idea. So I increased the size of the mountain and placed ice throughout the snow to help it blend with the tundra. Since this is supposed to be a cave, I needed the active mist to craft snow wall. I also made ice wall, but I'm not sure if that's from regular ice or not. I just thought it would be good to have snow and ice wall, since ice and snow blocks usually look good together. When night rolled around, I searched for lacewings, but only found one, and ever since the first week I spawned her, the spawn rates have just been dropping substantially. It's weird. I used to get 2 or 4 a night, like I had mentioned earlier, but I'm only getting like 1, so that's one reason I don't farm her so much, because I just don't get any of the lacewings. But back to the tundra, I have learned an appreciation for creating an outline for builds before actually building. I have a terrible tendency to not do that, but now I am. See, builders of the Terraria community, I'm taking the most basic steps to improve. I wanted the housing to look more natural and rugged, I guess, so I built them by block swapping the ground and then mirroring it, sort of, for the roof. But part of the reason I increased the size of the mountain was because I wanted a second level of housing in it. I'm not sure how to describe what I am doing here, but I wanted it to look like a mining community that decided to make the caves their home, but it's also still a place initially built for mining and now has been retrofitted for civilians. I put in the walls for the housing and then for the cave. I tried using the ice wall, but hated how it looked, so I never returned to using it. I then added a few finishing touches to these shafts that connect the builds, and they are easily my favorite part of the build, even after everything else, which I guess means we're going downhill from here. I added lampposts, though I'm not sure how they fit with the theme. I just like how they look. It was night again, so I hunted for lacewings, only found 1 yet again, but I guess this means now I have 2. So after wasting 1 because I still had the guide to critter companionship on, I summoned Empress and died because I got distracted by chat. Not my best performance, but maybe it's just because my hands are now the hands of a creator, not a destroyer. So back to building. The boreal houses look weird, being only 1 block thick, so I added gray brick and rather enjoyed how it looks, and then added this thing that connects the houses. I don't know what it is. I don't think it looks bad, but I don't know what it is. It was just in my head when I thought of this build, and now in retrospect, I think what I had in mind required more structure and less ruggedness. I wanted this connector to be straight, but that wasn't an option, so I just barfed stuff into existence and called it a day. I added windows, and this is the first time I've liked how my glass windows looked. But now I'm left with the interior, and I still don't know how to make a good looking one. I really need some help with this. I threw what I could think of down and it's fine, but I'm not super happy with it. I did learn that boreal wood does have lampposts and what have you, though you just need ice torches, and those look pretty sick. Next time I hunted for lacewings, I got 2 of them, and I managed to take down 2 Empresses. I still want that magical guitar, but still haven't had any luck. I did get Empress wings for the first time ever though, and these are pretty good wings. Though the first time I tried them, I forgot I had the insignia equipped and was baffled by how brokenly good these things were until I realized that. In reality, they're pretty much on the same tier as the Fishron and Betsu wings, so now each of my 3 builds have a slightly different wing accessory. At this point, the Tundra part of the build is done, but there is one more section needed to complete this project. Next up is the Cavern area, where I'm going to be making an artificial aether biome. I'll just need to wait until next month to get the bottomless shimmer bucket to fill the basin. There are other methods to move the stuff, but I don't want to move the shimmer I got. I just want to make more. But it's not just going to be a shimmer pool. I'm also adding a platform structure with some small housing using brick and dynasty wood. And although I love the idea of the shingles, they never really look good with anything I've ever built. I wish they'd blend more with the blocks below them. I'm not a fan of the weird wood line at the bottom since these just don't blend. Is there a block that they blend well with? I'd love to hear some suggestions. And finally, someone recommended suspending these houses with giant crystals, and I loved the idea so much I had to do it. I'm not sure I can execute it well, and I wasn't able to quite finish it this week. I'm not supremely happy with what I accomplished today, but it's something to build off of. I really want this to work out because the crystal structure with the shimmer I think could look gorgeous. The start of week 4 and I only have one objective: to get the magical guitar thing from the Empress of Light. But before taking care of that, I need to quickly finish up the crystal build in the cave. What I'm going for with this build is to make it look like the crystals suddenly sprouted out of the ground and destroyed what had been built here. Like some sort of superhero or monster had the ability to cause crystals to just grow or something. I got some serious lore going on for these things in my head, and it's just a build. Is that how you... That's probably how you get inspired to build. You create lore around it. One crystal destroyed a house, and I didn't want an exact parallel, so I made the second crystal destroy the platform between the fountain and the house. But then the bottom right side of the cave felt empty, so I added a little crystal here to fill it in. I cannot wait until I add shimmer to this, but that'll have to wait until next month. It's time to return to the grind, and after grinding Duke Fishron for what felt like millennia, I'm hopeful this won't take nearly as long, especially since I've already grinded a bit. But to spawn her, I need more lacewings, and I think a shadow candle might increase their spawn rate. Is a lacewing considered a passive or hostile mob? How do they work with NPCs, since usually towns increase passive mob spawns? So would a shadow candle help? I don't know, but I decided to look for it anyways. I thought I'd left the shadow candle in the little hollow biome farm, but it wasn't there, so instead of running around the world trying to find the one that I had made, I just crafted another one. Time to sleep, and I'll bet I'll need to do a lot of that today unless I get lucky. When the time came, I hunted down the lacewings, but only found 2. I know I've said this before, but I swear, after beating Empress in daytime, the spawn rate for these things has dropped. At this point, I've become quite familiar with Empress of Light, even though I hardly understood anything about her at the start of this month. That doesn't stop me from still losing, but I blame my chat for that one. It's too late to fight her again, so I sleep to the next light, search for lacewings, find almost none, and summon her again. This time I'm sure to pay a bit more attention, and I managed to take her down 2 times, which is the most times I can beat Empress after having already lost half of the night searching for lacewings. I slept again, but when night rolled around, it was a blood moon. I thought this might help a little, but I was unaware of just how much of an effect it would have. I think I caught some 7 lacewings that night, and it feels really good. How I wish this was their normal spawn rate. And actually, as I think about it, I wonder if lacewings are more rare because Relogic thought people would get annoyed by constantly spawning her in on accident, like Queen Bee. Think about it, if they did spawn more frequently, then we'd be more likely to spawn her without meaning to and get annoyed. Only problem with that theory is that I just about always have the guide of critter companionship on me, but I suppose I can't speak for everyone. Maybe I'm wrong in all this, but I wonder if that's why they are as rare as they are. Now with a bunch of lacewings, I should be able to fight her plenty, but then I spawn one in while forgetting to take the Guide of Critter Companionship out of my inventory. No matter how many times I do this, I keep making the same mistake, and I've probably lost 5 or more lacewings due to being dumb. I took down Empress and crossed my fingers and close, but no guitar. See what I did there? I hunted for more lacewings the next night for some reason and fought her 2 more times, winning both times, but still no guitar. I did get Red's vanity set though, and I've always loved his vanity set, so I set it up at home. I tried sleeping to the next night, but the gosh darn pirates invaded, so I had to deal with them first. On the bright side though, I got the pirate ship mount, and it's just neat. Instead of farming the next night, I went straight to fighting her. I took her down twice, but then I went to add the statues to my collection, and I accidentally grabbed the lacewings and not the statue, and spawned in 2 lacewings, which quickly disappeared. So there goes 2 more lacewings I worked so hard for. I beat her with the last one, but still got no guitar. The drop chance in Master Mode is 5%, and I'm getting to that point where the odds are against me, and I'm having flashbacks to Duke Fishron. I used a bloody tear, and sure enough, lacewings were plentiful once again. Guess I found a good way to farm them, so that's exciting. Just too bad bloody tears are not all that common. I beat her again, but lost the next one, and now I realize I've actually been doing quite a good job at winning consistently, and that's pretty satisfying. Losing this time isn't, but knowing I'm theoretically doing better is nice. Another night, 3 more Empresses, and still no guitar. Another blood moon for lacewings, and I get fewer this time, but I did, at long last, get one of the keys I have long been hunting for with no luck whatsoever. I got my first! I got my first dungeon chest key! I finally got one! You heard me right. That was my first dungeon chest key. I have gotten way more keys and runs far shorter than this one. I never go out of my way to farm these things, but in this run, I have, and I just now get my first key. I was so excited, I went to the dungeon right away to open the chest, but I forgot to mark where it is, so I had to roam around a while and even ended up opening the map and hovering over different little pixels to find it, and now I have the piranha gun. Whoopee! And now let's finish off the week and the month with one final push for the guitar. First Empress, nothing. Second Empress, nothing. Third Empress, nothing. Fourth Empress, nothing. Fifth and final Empress, nothing. I placed the statues and realized I have killed the Empress of Light 30 times, since 2 of the relics are back home and 28 are here. The odds are once again not in my favor. Not what I had hoped to end the month with, but that's it. Maybe I'll farm it more before Moonlord, since I really want to use that guitar on the Moonlord, but I don't know. We'll see. According to my retention stats, nobody listened to these anyway, so I guess I'll keep it brief. This month was one I feared because no real progress is being made. It's just Empress, and Duke was already in the month before it, and that doesn't present any progress either. But in the end, I got to make 2 of my favorite builds ever, and now feel much more confident in my ability to make something, and that makes me happy. I also have a much better understanding of Empress, and though I'm not sure I'll do all that well in a normal run where I have much worse gear, I'm glad I feel much more familiar with that boss. But the end of the road is next month, and I'm holding in the tears as we approach the end.